Gideon Ragnarsson is a member of the Heroes Party and the Bahamut Knights. For once, he's not one of those disgusting losers like we usually show you guys. Never mind, they throw him away because apparently his divine blessing was useless. They did not know that he was hiding his real power. His divine blessing is called the Guide. He uses his blessing to help guide the Heroes Party through their journey to defeat the Demon Lord and protect the world. Apparently, maps don't exist in this world, and they have to rely on this bootleg Neofumi to help them navigate their world. All the members of the Heroes Party have their own divine blessings which contribute to helping the hero fulfill her mission. But we'll never see them in action because all of them aren't that important in the story. The divine blessings are granted at birth to everyone in the world by the almighty deity Demis. Orphans from the slums can be granted general blessings, while those of royal birth can be granted the thief blessing. These blessings grant them special skills, and the skills can be leveled up by slaying someone with a blessing as well. This world is basically a PvP world. However, things started to change for the worse when Biggest Ops arrived, the Demon Lord. He invaded the continent and basically nuked 4 nations in one go. Like damn, they didn't stand a chance. It was up to the hero, a female warrior named Rudy, to step up and fight for her people. She stands with a sword in hand as she watches the city burn. But that's a lot of tents she's looking at, isn't she? Gideon believes that the gods didn't abandon them when they gave Rudy the divine blessing of the hero, despite 4 nations being jumped by the ops. He believes in her because she is his little sister, but they don't even look alike. Is he stupid? Due to her hero blessing, Rudy always lacked the ability to show or feel emotions. One stormy night when she and Gideon were still young, Gideon asked if she was scared. She denied, and Gideon asked to hold her hand because he was. Upon holding hands, Gideon confessed he wasn't scared, he just wanted to hold her hand. Bro is literally rizzing up the kids. Bro, we need to lock this man up, right now. Rudy asked why, and Gideon told her that sometimes people do things without a reason. Rudy didn't understand this, but Gideon wanted to do more than just show his affection. She smiled, telling him that she loved him and asked him to stay by her side forever. However, Gideon couldn't promise this because the plot wants him to avoid this route because this is the bad ending. He wanted to become a strong knight so that he could adventure together with her. Rudy was disappointed, but Gideon told her not to worry because he would be there whenever she needed him the most. He asked if she wanted her a gift when he visits, and she replied warm milk and honey, which was her favorite. Despite being still a child, Rudy was forced to fulfill her duty as the hero and go on missions to save some helpless people who have the divine blessing of being a victim. One of them was to save a little girl who was captured by a level 10 owlbear and taken to the snowy mountains. She knew that despite being the hero, she was too weak to win against the owlbear. She didn't even bring a plate armor or a longsword. What the hell is she thinking? However, the demon appeared, forcing Rudy into a fight she knew it could be her last. She tried to face off with the owlbear, but she rolled a nat 1, giving her a critical failure on her dex save, sending her flying with a heavy injury on her stomach, all while doing the Yamcha pose. She used her healing magic to quickly heal and get back into the fight. The creature threw another attack her way, but she finally rolled a nat 15, allowing her to dodge its attacks. She ran towards the owlbear, climbed to its face, and rolled a nat 20, allowing her to do a massive critical damage against this cracked creature. The owlbear was furious and slapped her away again, sending her to the ground. The other girl ran for her life, but Rudy had to stay and endure the pain. She knew that even if she survives this fight, it will never be enough. She will be forced into fighting more demons in a never-ending cycle until her last breath. In the end, she knows that she's just the deity's toy who will be forced to suffer just for the sake of others. But what makes it more painful is that those people don't appreciate her, they just call her a weirdo fodder character who will never make it past episode 6. Yet when in need, they always beg for her help and protection. She was tired of this life, but she didn't want to give up because she wanted to return to her brother. It doesn't make sense though, she's like 6, why is she even tired of living? The owlbear was about to finish her when she screamed Gideon's name, asking him to save her. And just as he had always promised, Gideon showed up and cut the owlbear in half. What the hell, is Gideon the hero all along? He ran towards her and embraced her in tears, telling Rudy that she sucked so bad that he had to hyper-carry her, which makes him cry. Since then, the two siblings spent their next years fulfilling demon hunting mission until they meet the Demon Lord. They had formed a party where Gideon uses his blessing of the guide to guide and help them on battle. They were joined by Ares the Sage, Theodora the Crusader, and Danon the martial artist. No need to remember their names though, because they're also fodder characters. They visit a border town of Loggervia to find more about the orc army that was seen nearby. They plan to deal with them when they notice a drunk guy suddenly approaching a girl in a bar. The guy invites her for a drink while placing his hand on her shoulder, but the girl reacts by using the guy as a circus hammer, killing an invisible rat beneath him. The man insults her while preparing to cast his fireballs, but she charges him, tells him to run away and open the door when he goes out. The guy runs away, and the girl uses this chance to walk to Gideon's table and explain that their land doesn't need the hero party right now because the plot doesn't demand for it yet. She then leaves the bar, and two guys reveal she's Princess Rit, a noble and their strongest adventurer. After that initial encounter, Rit meets Gideon on a different night. She asks him if the heroes party has made any progress in their mission to locate the orc army, and he says, "No, we haven't unlocked the side quest yet." She mocks him for his lack of intel, and Gideon replies she will regret it later because she'll be betrayed by one of her commanders. Rit boasts about her party's investigation, making better progress than the heroes, and claims she can share what she got if he gets down on all fours and begs her to peg him. However, she's surprised as Gideon does as told without showing any sense of pride. This makes Rit feel guilty, resulting in Gideon's laugh. Rit now feels embarrassed because she didn't know a man could be as peggable as this guy. Gideon kindly apologizes and asks again, forcing Rit to reveal they had found tracks around a nearby village. Gideon remembers that there was a mountain cabin that was used by loggers in the location. Rit agrees, but reveals that all the logging is currently happening in another place. However, Gideon realizes that there's something strange. The town hasn't been receiving any wood in the past days. He asks Rit where's the wood, but Rit doesn't know yet since she is a princess. How the hell would she know? Gideon suspects someone must be using magic. They both conclude that it could be an organized group that is holding the village hostage and are slaying everything in sight. If that is the case, it means that it's the Demon Lord's army doing it. Why would the Demon Lord's army hold a village hostage that had nothing but wood in it? We don't know. Gideon asks Rit to team up and fight this together, but Rit doesn't think the heroes party will be able to help. Rit, it's a heroes party we're talking here, you're not making any sense. She doesn't want to team up with them because she and her team have defeated the Demon Lord's army twice before. Blood really thinks she and her logger army can solo the Demon Lord's army. Bro really thinks she's Sun Tzu because apparently Loggervia hasn't lost any of their land from anyone invading them, as they've always won their battles, plain and simple. Gideon reminds her that when the goblins attacked them, their ancestors asked for help from Central. They knew that they needed help and didn't let pride get in the way. Rit refuses to even consider it because she wants to do it herself so that her father can stop asking for help from the hero. Gideon lets it go and offers her some cookies he made after being tired of eating salt-cured food. At first, Rit is embarrassed by the offer, but ends up eating and enjoying the cookies because in their town, she only ever eats wood chips. Days later, the heroes party, Rit and the royal army discuss that the enemy offensive has stopped. One of the knights reveals that the Demon Lord's army will continue their invasion soon, so they need to do something. Another knight is scared that if the war continues, they will all be annihilated since food and water is running low. I can't trust a guy who looks like this though. He looks like he's gonna betray them anytime soon. However, Rit explains their enemy should also be facing the same problems. She discovered a mountain fortress where the enemy has been storing food and thinks that's where they need to strike. After everyone agrees that it's a terrible idea because sieging an enemy fortress that has food and water is suicide for your army. Rit is so goddamn stupid, but she lays out the plan anyway. While the main force distracts the enemy, she will lead a party of adventurers to raid the fortress. Some of the knights don't want the princess to enter enemy territory because why would you let someone as inexperienced as her lead a raiding party? But Rit says the plan is foolproof. Rit's master plans to lead the royal guard to act as a decoy while she does what she must. The heroes party also wants to lend a hand, so the master tells them that they will guard the castle, which Gideon isn't particularly happy with. His suspicion is later confirmed as Rit's plan fails after being betrayed by her master. He surrounds her with a huge army of orcs, urging her to question the reason of his betrayal. However, she quickly realizes by his gestures that it's an imposter. Oh, they're playing Among Us now. The imposter then revealed his identity as Shisadan, a demon who ate her master, took over his memories, and looks like a mad Naofumi if he actually goes down the redo of healer route. Rit furiously charged at him, but unfortunately, one of the goblins struck her down. Shazandan knew that the people of Loggervia loved her as their hero, so he wanted to steal her appearance to easily conquer the country. He asked her what she thought about this plan. But Rit couldn't even answer the question because the orc is forcing her down the ground. Suddenly, a sword was thrown, impaling Shazandan on the chest. Bro thought he could get away being a fodder character. When they checked where the sword come from, they saw Gideon, who immediately cut up the goblin holding Rit down. Rit was also surprised by Gideon's arrival and asked him why he was there. Gideon explains he's there to make a dramatic entrance and save her stupid ass. He stood up and told her her plan sucks, but now that he's here, she doesn't need to worry because throughout the heaven and earth, he alone is the honored one. Rit quickly got up and prepared to face the demons once more. At that moment, Shazandan transformed, returning to his original form of a multi-armed, steroid gym rat demon. They had to buff this dude so much because he knows he's gonna get one tapped anyway. Gideon let Rit know that Rudy would arrive soon, so they needed to hold off the demon until then. Rit agreed, but Shazandan attacked them right away. They managed to somehow dodge the attack, but that didn't prevent Shazandan from hitting them, sending Rit to the ground, while Gideon tried to block. Immediately, Rudy appeared and put a blur on the demon's arms to prevent YouTube from taking down this video before piercing him through his chest, which will probably gonna get this video flagged anyway. This stunned Rit, who stood in awe, watching as the hero basically committed a live leak in front of her. Where did those guys behind her come from though? When Rudy looked back to see Rit's face, Rit only stared at her with a cold expression. Intimidated, Rit looked away only to see the dead bodies of her army, deepening her fear and shock. Some days later, Gideon visits Rit's room and mentions that she's been missing the War Council for the past meetings. He shares with her that the enemy attack is still ongoing. He's worried about her emotional state and maybe he can make her feel a little bit comfortable. He tells her it's fine if she doesn't want to continue fighting because her plan sucked anyway and her men basically died for nothing. But he knows that she wants to fight for her people. Rit confirms that she does want to fight, but she's scared of losing more men. But that's basically how war goes. Rit, are you stupid? Her master, the royal guards, and all the adventurers have been clapped to Kingdom Come. And now she's basically gonna send all of their men to the meat grinder because she doesn't want to ask for the heroes' party's help. That is scary, especially since she knew each one of them personally. But we don't care about them because they're not the main character. Yet, she now sits on her bed, crying and blaming herself because none of them are still alive. Gideon feels sorry for her, but this is basically Rit's fault for not asking for the hero's party's help. She really thought she could carry, she doesn't got that aura. He tells her that his party are going to break through the enemy's offense through the Bewitching Woods. The offense line from the enemy is pretty tight, but he has a former comrade, Yarandrala, who lives nearby and could provide assistance. Rit wants to leave the rest of the war in Gideon's hands, but if reinforcements arrive, she will try to fight again. Gideon doesn't want that though. He wants her to shut up and stay in the room so she can actually do something that's good for once, like preventing her own citizens from dying needlessly because of her foolish plans. He wants her to uphold the same will to continue fighting and accompany them to request for backup. If she doesn't stand up and join the fight once more, her people will only remember the day they took a massive L and their champion who basically got some of their families killed. Even if the Demon Lord and his party are defeated, the people of Logravia will still have the memory of the loss etched in their hearts, and that's all because of Rit's stupidity. Gideon encourages Rit, telling her that the fight isn't the heroes to win, but she must continue fighting for the people of Logravia. Rit listens closely and stops crying because she knows that Gideon is right. A nation only fails when it stops fighting, and the only way to prevail is to continue to fight, and basically not put herself on the front lines. Rit understands that she must be the one to claim victory. However, their biggest problem was the fact that the Demon Lord's army were surrounding Logravia. Gideon managed to come out with a plan to request help to neighboring Duchy of Sunland. To do that, they must slip past the Demon Lord's army by moving through the Bewitching Woods, a forest that not even demons can pass through. They make their first stop at a village on the edge of the woods where they meet a bewitchingly stunning elf named Yarandrala. Rit notices how close Yarandrala and Gideon seem to be based on their closeness and tone of speaking. Gideon introduces Yarandrala as his side chick to Rit and tells her that Yarandrala's blessing is the singer of the trees, which helps her talk to plants. Yarandrala explains that her blessing allows her to talk the plants to guide them. Gideon explains that Yarandrala is the key to their plan, as the Demon Lord's army is unaware that there is a hippie in the hero's party. Rit is impressed by Yarandrala's blessing, but still asks Gideon if he trusts her that much. Gideon confirms and starts giving instructions to their party. He tells Danon and Theodora to stay in the village to protect the people while he and the rest go ahead through the woods. Soon, the party takes off and enter the woods led by Yerindrala. As they walk, Rit notices Gideon and Yerindrala chatting happily. She feels jealous and wishes that Gideon could give her some attention, but she knows it won't happen after she takes the L in Logorvia. She then notices Yerindrala holding on to Gideon's arm and wonders what's wrong with her, causing Rudy to look at her. She becomes embarrassed and looks down. Gideon asks her if everything is okay. She tells him not to worry about her, she doesn't need him to. Gideon understands and apologizes. In reality, she does want him to worry about her, but she doesn't admit it because she's at Tsundir. After a while, Yerindrala stops them. They see goblin scouts of the Demon Lord waiting for them to appear. These goblins be on that protein shake, bro, what the hell? Gideon sees as more scouts approaching and makes a plan. He will distract the enemy while Rudy and Rit to break past the lines and get Sunland's reinforcements. Rit and Ares oppose because it's too risky, even for Gideon. Rudy tells them to trust her brother because he's the main character and asks Yerindrala to go with Gideon. Rit worries that Gideon will get hurt and tries to tell Rudy that it's not a good idea. However, Rudy tells her shut up, cracked melons. Gideon assures Rit that he wouldn't propose something that he couldn't handle. After some hours, Rit and Rudy return after successfully getting the Persians as their reinforcements. Rit starts to worry that Gideon has failed and something happened to him, but Rudy tells her to call for her name and tells her to stay back. Rit gets confused but only has time to watch Rudy charge forward alone and slice every enemy into pieces. The troops from Sunland celebrate their first victory at the win, but everyone's attention changes when they listen to Gideon's voice. They see him, and Yerindrala arrive as well, exhausted but not wounded. Tears well up on Rit's eyes when she sees that her prayers worked. She is about to run to Gideon, but Rudy runs to him first and hugs him. Rudy apologizes to Gideon for forcing him to do this job and promises that she won't do it ever again. Rit is surprised to see Rudy show affection despite her expressionless face. After the battle, Rit was invited to join the heroes' party, but she refused to because she had to help rebuild Logorvia. However, the main reason why she refused to is because she didn't want to come between Rudy and Gideon. She waves goodbye to them as they leave to continue their many adventures. However, a few months later, Ares asks for a private conversation with Gideon. Ares throws him a bronze sword and activates a magic shield in front of himself, asking Gideon to strike him with the sword. When Gideon strikes the shield, the sword bounces off. Ares smirks and explains there are many ways, both physical and magical, to pierce the shield, but Gideon can't do it. Gideon replies that it would have done it if he used his sword, Thunderwaker. However, Ares thinks that Gideon relies too much because of his sword's power. Ares then claims that a true comrade can fulfill his role. Gideon doesn't understand, and Ares explains that Gideon couldn't fulfill his role in the recent fight with an enemy. He even mentions that Rudy had to protect him, which led to the enemy getting some advantage. Ares then calls Gideon a liability to the party and a deadweight to Rudy. Did bro really forget that Gideon is literally a walking Mafak, or is he stupid? Gideon is not happy to hear this, but believes it. As the guide, he has the same strength as a veteran knight, and his job is to guide and protect the hero in the first leg of their journey. However, Ares claims that Gideon already fulfilled his task. He reasons that everyone in their party already reached a higher level than Gideon, and there's nothing he can do better than them. Heartbroken, Gideon claims that he's trying as hard as he can, but to Ares, trying his best is not an excuse to be a liability. It's selfish of Gideon to ask for forgiveness for his incompetence just because he's trying hard. Ares believes that Rudy won't be able to abandon a comrade or ask Gideon to leave the party. So, he wants Gideon to quit on his own to stop being a burden to his sister. Gideon knows that he can't return after being labeled a liability. Therefore, he asks Ares to tell the others that he left to scout the Demon Lord's army and never came back. Ares agrees and Gideon prepares to leave. However, tells him to stop and return all of Gideon's equipment because the party paid for it, not him, stripping him of all affiliation with the hero party. Ares literally called bro a deadweight and told him to return everything. Gideon could never really recover from that. Some days later, the heroes' party continue their journey through the desert when Ares decides to introduce Tis, their new member and Gideon's replacement. She has the blessing of an assassin and is a top talent in the Assassin's Guild. He tells his comrades that Tis will be far more useful than Gideon ever was. Tis thanks the team for welcoming her and introduces her partner, a spider named Jumpidgeters. Danon gets up and introduces himself, so does Theodora. They both state their blessings. Right then, Rudy comes out of her tent and introduces herself. Rudy tells Tis that even though she was hired by Ares, she's the boss. Tis accepts that, so Rudy tells her that they are going on a mission to hunt for the weapon that the previous demon lord left behind. However, the party ends up in the same spot after looking for several days. Good job, Ares. Bro is really smirking as if they're doing a good job. Danon suddenly screams, telling Ares that he's sick of the situation and wasting time. He thinks all people Ares contacted are useless because they still don't have any leads and will be forced to return to get more supplies. Ares explains the weapon isn't going to be easy to find, it's a demon lord's weapon after all. He also did his best to negotiate with the desert dwellers, but to no avail. Danon claims they never faced this situation when Gideon was still around. Ares gets offended mentioning that he's the sage while Gideon is just some random bozo with the best connections in the world, with both practical and communication skills. Bro is maxed out on his LinkedIn account. However, Danon doesn't care about that. He decides to find Gideon and invite him back into their party. Ares can't have that and tries to stop Danon. Danon stops and reveals that he only joined the party because it seemed like the most direct path to defeating the demon lord. However, everything changed after Gideon left. If Gideon doesn't come back, Danon will also leave the party. Danon tells Ares that banishing Gideon was a fatal mistake. Ares tries to explain that Gideon left on his own. But at that moment, Rudy appears and orders Danon to find and bring Gideon back, shocking Ares. Ares doesn't want this, but he can't defy the hero. Theodora asks Danon what he's going to do, and Danon tells her that he only has one choice, to find Gideon. But he thinks that Ares might have killed him because he was in the way. Theodora asks if it's because of what Yarandrala had said. Danon remembers the moment that Ares told everyone that Gideon left the party. Of course, Yarandrala couldn't believe the story and punched Ares, believing that he killed Gideon. Theodora mentions how Yarandrala was devastated. She had tears in her eyes because she believed in Gideon and recognized his abilities, unlike Ares. Theodora also believes that Gideon was low-diffing everyone and is basically smurfing by using basic skills. Danon also reveals that he respected Gideon's tactics, as the guy is basically their Sun Tzu. However, Theodora mentions that he always criticized Gideon whenever he made a mistake in combat. But Danon says that mistakes must be called out in order to be corrected. Despite that, he never thought that Gideon was a liability to the party. None of them did, except for Ares. Theodora thinks that they should have let Gideon know sooner, as it would have meant a lot coming from them. Besides, Ares may be a skilled mage, but he would have no chance to kill someone they recognize like Gideon. Inside the tent, Rudy sits next to a lamp, talking to herself. She talks about how she doesn't need to sleep because of her blessing, but the nights are long and boring without her brother, and now she's basically a schizo without Gideon. She remembers the day when Ares came to her and told her that Gideon had left. Rudy asked him why Gideon would tell him first and not her. Ares replied that Gideon had pride and didn't want to look bad to her. Rudy looked down and Ares approached and told her that he understood that she felt uneasy without her brother around. After all, she was only a child when she received her hero blessing. Although she had only spent a short time with Ares, he would be there for her. Yet Rudy instantly knew that Ares had done something to Gideon and punched him on the gut, sending him flying to the wall. How is Bro alive after this? Not even the sensors are enough to show you how much damage this mother cracker had received. Rudy wanted to rush out in search of her brother, but she stopped. She went over to Ares, apologized for what she did, and healed him, which scared him. Bro knows she could just torture him and heal him repeatedly. She knew that her journey must continue as the hero, but she felt like there was a void where her brother was. After a while, the heroes' party prepare to continue their journey. Ares still makes comments about the party being perfect the way it is now. He doesn't believe that Gideon or Danon are needed, and he wants the remaining members to prove that they can do it on their own. They decide to resupply at once before they continue their search for the Demon Lord's weapon. During their break, Rudy approaches Tis, who curiously asks her why Rudy never sleeps. Rudy explains that she doesn't need to sleep or eat because of her blessing gives her the auto-sleep and auto-eat buff. In short, her only job is to fulfill the duty of being a hero. This means that most human things are restricted on her, like feeling emotions or temperatures, which explains why she's always expressionless. A sandstorm starts, and while Tis tries to cover herself, Rudy stands still, unaffected. Being a hero also gives her 100% eye and body protection from literally anything. Bro is literally on perpetual creative mode. She utters that since she's the hero, she can't run off to find her brother, as that's not part of her duty. After resupplying, the party sets off and arrive at an underground place where they run into a gargantuan demon with a sword in hand. Rudy sends Tis off to find the previous demon lord's weapon alone, while she and the others fight. She charges at the demon and manages to cut the demon's face, but that's not enough to take it down. Theodora also tries to attack the demon, but it blocks her. When Ares tries to use magic, the demon instantly brings down its sword on him to strike him. He freezes in fear, forcing Rudy to block the attack. As Tis continues to look for the sword, Rudy and Theodora work hard to fight the demon by themselves. Ares is left standing at the back, still frozen in fear. Bro knows he's cooked after making 2 of their frontline tanks leave the party. Rudy tells him that if Gideon was around, he would have made sure to make him not look like a little girl. She and Theodora are not designated to do that as their focus is on the fight. He must be careful and try to protect himself, and he agrees with an apology. He thinks of how true Rudy's words are. If Gideon was around, it would be easier to cast spells. But he doesn't blame himself for this outcome. Bro has really gaslit himself into making himself a victim because he thinks that it's Danon and Yarandrala's fault that it turned out this way. Tis comes back after finding something and takes the party to a Final Fantasy airship that they board immediately to get out of the place. Tis pilots the airship and asks Rudy if there's any place that she would like to go. Rudy replies that there is, but she can't go there because she's the hero and must continue her journey. Despite not feeling emotions, Rudy knows that her blessing is a curse because she can't enjoy even the smallest things. However, while stopping to resupply, Ares watches the airship fly away. He suspects that someone must have stolen it. But Theodora reveals that Rudy and Tis ditched them. Rudy ended up changing her mind about her journey and left without a warning. Ares is shocked by this revelation. How are the 2 girls going to fend off assailants without his magic? Bro really thinks he's him when he's basically a femboy fighting a goat demon earlier. In reality, he knows that the hero can manage on her own. Theodora goes back inside and finds a red crystal badge. She doesn't understand why Rudy left it behind because it's the proof that she's the hero. In the airship, Tis is happy to journey elsewhere with the hero. Apart from her duty, she's enjoying being friends with Rudy and piloting her to where she wishes to go. Meanwhile, we find out that Gideon is living in Zoltan. He knows that he could have been battling the Demon Lord with his little sister, or defending the capital as second in command of the Bahamut Knights. He could have also received a small domain and lived as a noble. Yet, he's out here in the middle of nowhere after changing his name to Red and becoming a D-rank adventurer. Bro really got called a liability and decided to just call it a day and live a different life. Despite all of this, Gideon finds the place to be just perfect for him at that moment. He knows his blessing doesn't have any special skills, but it grants him some common skills that are very helpful. With these skills, he's able to survive in Zoltan, navigate his way around the area, and identify medicinal herbs. While on an herb-gathering mission, Gideon notices an owlbear in the forest. His first instinct is to kill it, but he stops himself because he's no longer in the hero's party. When he returns to town, he gets approached by Albert, another town adventurer. Albert tells him that they're going to the mountains to take care of the owlbear issue and asks Gideon to join his party as he knows how to navigate the mountains. Gideon refuses the offer because he prefers to lay low, upsetting Albert. Later at night, he looks through his earnings for the day and finds that he's still broke. Bro should have accepted Albert's job offer, but Mans couldn't get over being called a liability by gray-haired dudes. Bro thinks he's Mau Mau and wants to open an apothecary, but with the amount of money he's making, he'll take more than 24 episodes to do it, and their budget for Season 1 is just for 13 episodes. He gets a knock on his door from a friend Gonzu, who tells him that his nephew Tanta has a fever and a condition called white eye. Gideon becomes worried and hurries to see Tanta. He finds out that Tanta collapsed in the afternoon and worries that he might go blind if the illness is left untreated for more than 24 hours. Why are they asking Gideon to help Tanta though? It's not like he's a doctor or something. They must find the right medicine to treat him right away. But the doctor reveals they're short on medicine because of the large goblin fever and white eye outbreaks in the past month. Gonzu feels desperate and doesn't want to see his son die. He gets on his knees and begs Gideon to find the herbs to cure Tanta, promising to pay any price. Gideon thinks about how the mountains are off limits and how the Adventurers Guild might expel him if they find out that he went there. But he decides to accept and asks Gonzu to keep it a secret and to pay him $400 billion. He sets off to the mountains using his lightning speed technique to help him get there faster. Bro is just literally using Naruto Run. However, when he arrives, he finds that the forest is engulfed in flames. On top of that, an owlbear appears right in front of him. Gideon realizes it fled from Albert's group and takes it down with a single attack. Gideon manages to get the herbs and gets back to the doctor so that Tanta can be treated in time. You can see Tanta already smiling because he's no longer going to be off-screened. Everyone is relieved that there won't be any permanent damage done, and Tanta looks like he's getting better. Gideon is also happy with his work, but he only managed to get 1 bag of the herbs for all the effort he put. He blames his blessings limit, having trained hard to max out his potential, but still at a limit. It makes him feel like maybe he deserved to be kicked out of the heroes' party. As a reward for saving Tanta, Gonzu spent 4 months building Gideon's apothecary. Bro built this Alice in Wonderland house for him, all by himself. He hasn't gotten a customer yet, especially since it's been raining for a while, and umbrellas don't exist in this world. He's worried that his medicines will expire before anyone buys them. Suddenly, a hooded girl comes into the shop. This makes him happy, thinking that it's a customer, but it's not. It's Rit, the princess of Logorvia. She's happy to see Gideon after so long, and Gideon feels the same too. They catch up over tea and discuss some quick dinner. Rit immediately asks Gideon if she can work with him at the shop, even suggesting a name for it. Gideon is reluctant at first since she's one of 2B ranking adventurers in the town. Rit doesn't hesitate to quit being an adventurer to work with him, saying that she wants to be with him forever. Feeling the same as her, welcomes her into his business and his life. Bro is thinking 5 steps ahead because he knows he doesn't need to pay her by piping her every night. With Rit's help, the shop gains traction and they sell out their stock in no time. Gideon is so happy to have Rit by his side because he knows guys buy medicine if it's from a big-breasted anime girl and not some generic-ass main character with black hair. He expresses his gratitude, causing her to blush, and the two become even closer. After the success of Rit and Gideon's business, Big Hawk, the leader of the Thieves Guild, wants to discuss Rit quitting the Adventurers Guild. There are other guilds who don't want her to quit either because that would create problems for them. She's their trump card because she can severely punish her enemies, so they want her back. Dyer thinks that maybe Rit's retirement should be celebrated, but it's not that simple. If Rit is on her own, the guilds fear that she might see them as a threat and attack them. Things are easier if they are on the same side. Big Hawk wants Dyer to help them out because he has dirt on her. Although he won't reveal what it is, they still think he'd be of help. They want him to take care of Rit without compromising themselves. Dyer agrees but demands compensation, which he gets in the form of a cargo hauling job. The cargo might contain money, so Dyer accepts the deal. In the evening, Rit is reminded of a delivery that she forgot, and she hurries to do it instantly. On her way, she meets Dyer, but is not interested in talking to him. So Dyer tries to persuade her, referring to her by her royal title. Rit realizes what he's trying to do and tells him that she's not trying to hide her identity. The threat won't work. Dyer persists, revealing that he also knows that she's living with Red and should be as nice to others as she is with him. Rit, sick of this, hits Dyer with the back of her sword and he falls to the ground. He threatens to tell Logorvia that she's living with Red, causing her to stop mid her second attack. He tells her to go back to adventuring or to Logorvia. Rit stands up straight and proud, telling him to do whatever he wants. She doesn't care. All she wants is to continue her life with Gideon. Dyer is surprised to hear this. How could she be satisfied with this boring life when she has an amazing blessing? Rit knows that her blessing is great, but she only wants this kind of simple life with Gideon, which confirms that Gideon was packing. She picks up her package and continues her way to her destination. On another day, when Rit and Red are out of the shop, they leave Al, Tanta's friend, there by himself. A man named Godwin arrives, asking for the boy. Later, Gideon tells Rit about it. Godwin was one of Big Hawk's men bringing a sword for Al. Gideon shows Rit the sword, which has a red blade, and asks her to inspect it. Rit does so and finds out where the sword was made. She reveals that it has some magic enhancements, one of which is a locate spell cast on it. This means that whoever gets the sword can always be found by the caster. Gideon wonders why Big Hawk would want to track Al. He thinks that maybe Big Hawk might take advantage of Al. When Al was telling Gideon about the visit from Godwin, he expressed his desire to become a champion like Rit. But he was still not sure whether that's what he wants or what his blessing wants. Gideon told him to ask the sword what it wants, to fight in battles, or to protect his loved ones. He said that's what a spear fighter once told him, referring to Theodora. The next day, Rit gets cornered by Dyer and his men, mistaken for Al. They tell her that Big Hawk is looking for Al. They use the Crimson Sword to track him down, but unfortunately for them, Rit has the sword. She laughs at them for their blunder and immediately takes off her cloak to reveal herself. She tells them that since the locate spell doesn't reveal who has the sword, she used it to trick them. Dyer isn't impressed with her trick, so he orders his men to teach her a lesson. But she's the one who teaches them a lesson. One of the men approaches her, revealing that he knows her. Rit realizes that the man is not human, and he immediately reveals his true form of an axe demon. However, Rit easily takes him down too and wins the battle. On another day, when Rit and Gideon are in their shop, a man suddenly stumbles into the shop. He has a wound on his shoulder and he begs for help as he collapses to the floor. Gideon instantly goes to check on him and asks Rit to head out there to find out what happened to him. Rit obliges and hurries out there. She runs through town to come to a stop where several people are wounded. The man committing these gruesome attacks is a member of Albert's party who Rit recognizes. Rit goes into defense mode when she sees that he looks thirsty for more. He tries to attack her, but she dodges the attack. She realizes that he has the thief blessing and starts to wonder about it. At that moment, other members who also look crazy, wielding axes, appear ready to attack. Rit does her best to defend herself and defeat the maniacs, but the men ultimately get taken down by arrows. They are coming from Albert and Rit asks him what is going on. Albert doesn't know either. He never thought one of his members would do something like this. He asks Rit to administer medicinal aid to the men he just took down. Rit instead raises her weapons at him, seemingly suspicious of him, but then drops them a second after. She puts up both of her hands in order to relax herself from her urges to clap Albert and apologizes for it. Urges to clap someone come with their blessings. Luckily, someone like Rit can control them. Later in the evening, after the issue has been resolved, it is found out that Albert and Big Hawk, with the help of Godwin, were behind the attacks. Gideon comes to meet Albert and Big Hawk. He greets them casually, but Albert doesn't want some D-ranking adventurer to be casual with him. He charges at Gideon for helping him get caught and attacks him. But Gideon evades the attack and blocks a following one, surprising Albert and the others. Albert doesn't understand how Gideon can do this with a simple sword when he has an even greater one. He comments that Gideon could also become a champion, but Gideon is more interested in the sword since it's a demon weapon. Albert confesses that he is tired of Zoltan, everyone there is lazy, and they celebrate even the smallest of achievements. He doesn't want to waste his life there, so he made a deal with a demon for a better life. He promises to just become a hero and not do anything evil. Gideon tells him that he let it get too far. Now a lot of people have lost their lives because of it. Albert sees it as a necessary sacrifice. He wants to unite all the people of Zoltan to fight against the Demon Lord's army. That's the reason he made a contract with the demon, to dedicate his entire life to fighting the Demon Lord. Big Hawk backs him up, saying that the contract wasn't made out of malice, but out of compassion. Albert reiterates that he wants to make Zoltan a military force that will make him the greatest champion of all time. He envisions himself by the side of the hero, battling the Demon Lord's army. He asks Gideon to join him in battling the Demon Lord and becoming a hero. But if Gideon doesn't want that, he can just defeat him there and become the sole hero of Zoltan. Gideon tells him that neither of those options interest him. At the same time, some guards surround them, and the head of the Adventurers Guild arrives to speak with Albert, wanting to know why he underestimates their town. Albert instantly thinks that Gideon has betrayed him, but Gideon denies this. He's just an apothecary, and the only people who can arrest him are the guards. Albert is disappointed in Gideon, who tells him that he's content with a simple life, Rit, and their apothecary business. Albert is upset by this all. He doesn't want to go down in history as some criminal. At the very least, he wants to be defeated by a hero, which will give him some dignity. He takes his sword and charges at Gideon. He tries to attack him, but Gideon quickly and swiftly stops him by cutting his hand off. Albert becomes devastated. He cries when he realizes that Gideon could have stopped his scheme at any time, but didn't. He's sad because there's someone more powerful than him, but Gideon tells him that's not what a hero is. On top of being powerful, they have to have compassion, just like Albert did. He was the only one who wanted it and worked hard for it. Gideon also believed in him, so no matter what happens, Albert will always be Zoltan's hero. After a while, Albert escapes prison with the help of the contract demon and goes to meet Theodora and Ares. Since he meets Rudy on the way, he tells Theodora and Ares where she is. This delights Ares, and Theodora thanks him for this information. She also tells him their next stop, where they will buy him a prosthetic hand to show gratitude. Albert tells Theodora that the man who cut his hand was strange. He was as powerful as a hero, but he chose not to be one. He doesn't understand why anyone wouldn't choose that over a boring apothecary job. Theodora explains that a man has free will, he can follow his blessing or not. Albert asks her if that's true, then why did Almighty give them blessings? Theodora replies that it's for the same reason he gave them free will. However, she also doesn't know if someone should strictly follow their blessing or choose a different path. She's still looking for the answer. While everyone is on their journeys, Danon is also still searching for Gideon. He boards a ship heading to Zoltan. While taking a break at a bar, a man in a hood approaches him, asking if he's looking for Gideon. He introduces himself as Buoy and says that he's also looking for Gideon. He wants to team up with Danon and search together. In the meanwhile, Rit tracks down a thief who she catches up to. She retrieves back what he had stolen and tells him that he wasted her time. The thief smirks at her and she becomes alert, jumping back from him. In that way, she dodges an explosive that sets off inside the man in an attempt to take her out. Rit is left shocked that someone can plant an explosive inside their subordinate. Right then, a group of thieves appear and try to attack her. She's worried that she let her guard down and now won't be able to defend herself properly. But she tries her best and takes down one man while the others are taken care of by Danon, who suddenly appears. Rit quickly cleanses herself before talking to Danon. She asks him why he's in Zoltan, and he explains why. Rit is worried that Danon will take Gideon away, but he tells her that he won't since he realizes that Gideon has found a home there. He walks to one of the people he defeated and finds that the person is actually a stalker demon with a hood on. They end up concluding that the thief who exploded earlier is a member of the Thieves Guild. Danon asks Rit to help him out with information since he doesn't want to meet Gideon anymore. He asks her not to say anything and tells her where to find him. Rit agrees and leaves. As she's leaving, Danon smiles in a sly manner. Rudy and Tis are also on their way to Zoltan. Tis has accepted that she's a pilot for Rudy now. She asks her why she's going to Zoltan. Rudy explains that there's a medicine maker there who she needs to find. She recently found some medicine which gives her hope, and the maker is Zoltan. But while in Zoltan, she wants to hide her hero status and wants Tis to treat her as a fellow traveler. Tis breaks into a sweat because she doesn't think she will be able to pull it off. Rudy doesn't know anything about being a regular traveler. She wants Tis to help her out whenever she messes up. Although Tis can't promise anything, she's glad that she'll be reliable to Rudy. The two girls arrive in Zoltan and quickly come up with disguises and aliases. Rudy gets a new dress and a new name, Ruhr, while Tis gives herself the name Tifa, and the two infiltrate. They soon find Gideon's shop and Rudy expresses joy at seeing her brother. She runs to hug him. Tis introduces herself to Gideon as the two siblings catch up. Rudy asks if Gideon is living with someone there, and he admits, telling her about Rit. Rudy doesn't seem to mind though. Gideon apologizes for not telling the truth when he left. He asks if Ares told her about the Demon Lord's story, but finds out that Ares didn't. He then decides to reveal the whole truth, and Rudy understands that it's all Ares' fault. She asks Gideon to rejoin the party. She can kick Ares out if that's what he wants. Ares isn't doing a good job anyways. She reveals that things haven't been going very well. Danon has left to search for him, and Yarandrala left because she thought that Ares clapped him. Gideon realizes that things weren't going as well as he had thought. But he has found a reason to stay in Zoltan, so he tells Rudy that he can't come back. Rudy then decides to stay in Zoltan too, shocking both Tis and Gideon. Rit comes back home and finds the hero there and sits down to catch up with her. Gideon asks Rudy why she came to Zoltan anyways. Rudy explains that she came to find him. She needs him to defeat the Demon Lord. She also wanted to find someone who had knowledge about defeating the Demon Lord, and now she has found him. Rit asks Gideon what he'll do, and he tells her that he will stay in Zoltan with her. Rit is delighted by the news, but Rudy shocks her when she reveals that she's moving to Zoltan too. She then gets up to leave, telling them that there's something else she wants to do. She and Tis will be staying at a nearby inn. Gideon tells her to visit sometimes, and Rudy agrees before leaving with Tis. After some time, Gideon learns that Rudy has been in contact with a contract demon. Apparently, Rudy has been consuming a Devil's Blessing drug that she got from Godwyn. They are worried that she might become poisoned. Gideon says that the drug won't do anything to her yet since her hero blessing is still intact. But since the drug does have a blessing weakening effect, it's only a matter of time before it becomes weak. If that happens, she'll become poisoned. They're all worried and hope it doesn't get to that, but they have to first wait and hear what Godwyn has to say. Gideon gets up to head to the Elven Ruins where Rudy is. Tiss asks him if he's upset with Rudy for breaking Godwyn out of prison. Gideon isn't happy about it, but since no one got hurt, it doesn't matter. Tiss is happy to hear this and asks him to tell Rudy since she could be worried about it, and Gideon agrees. She tells him that she needs alchemical tools that Godwyn requested from the port. Gideon tells her that he'll pass by the port and find what he can. Rit promises to take Tiss with her and head to the Elven Ruins as well. Theodora, Ares, and Albert arrive in Zoltan through the port soon. The place is terrible and Albert is worried that he'll get recognized by the people there. Theodora reassures him that the bandages he has on his face are magic and will divert attention from him. She suggests that they get an inn to stay there since ports are information hubs, but Ares doesn't want to stay there. He goes to look for an inn in the inner town, leaving Theodora and Albert behind. He passes by Buie, who curiously looks at him. Gideon arrives at the port to find the tools. As he sees some things that could be useful, Danon calls out to him. The two friends embrace as Theodora and Albert witnesses this using a magic spell to stay hidden. They catch up over lunch, and Danon asks Gideon why he left. Gideon tells him how he had reached his limit, but Danon immediately denies that being the truth. He explains that everything became clearer when Gideon wasn't around anymore. He praises him as a formidable force, someone who stayed calm even when fighting a stronger enemy. His tactical side was a tremendous help to them. The party needs him, but Gideon tells Danon that it won't be possible to go back anymore. He's found a home here. He apologizes for this, but Danon understands. He knows that despite the harsh criticism from Ares, Gideon has decided to leave the party on his own. Anyhow, Danon is interested in knowing what Gideon does in Zoltan, so he'll be staying for a while too. Gideon doesn't mind this, but confesses that there's a problem with Rudy. He tells him that she's suffering because of her blessing. Danon doesn't understand, but he wants to help his hero. He gets up so that they can go help Rudy out. But Gideon wants to catch up more and find out how Danon lost his arm. Danon decides to tell him on their way to the mountains. Albert and Theodora prepare to follow the two and find out more. In the meanwhile, Ares is waiting at an inn when he gets a knock from Danon, who has 2 arms. He asks why Danon is there, and Danon tells him that he found Gideon. He's a little annoyed that Rudy is not there with Ares, but he lets it go. He continues to reveal that Gideon plans to settle in Zoltan with Rit. This angers Ares, who believes that he's been risking his life. How could Gideon run off to live a peaceful life with a princess? Danon doesn't seem to be as bothered as Ares. He only comments that Rudy won't succeed in winning back Gideon. At that moment, he wonders if Rudy actually knew about Gideon the whole time. Ares begins to suspect that maybe she did after speaking to the contract demon, while Danon smirks at him. Ares asks Danon to take him to Gideon's shop so that he can order him to disappear from Rudy's life. Danon doubts that Gideon will just do that, but Ares swears that he will force him. It makes him angry to even think about it. Danon gladly leads him to the shop, making him happy that he will do away with Gideon for good. They arrive and Ares destroys the property, demanding answers from Gideon. But Gideon is not there, so Ares becomes infuriated and goes on a rampage, destroying everything he can find. Danon tells him what he's doing is a waste of time, but Ares will not hear it. He's angry, he cannot be stopped. The one-armed Danon is still with Gideon and tells him that Shazandan is still alive. When Danon had boarded a ship to Zoltan, he was attacked by an adventurer who bit off his arm and threw him off the ship. He survived because he was washed to the shore of the port town. As much as Danana didn't see his true form, he is sure that it was Shinsadan. Gideon can't believe what he's hearing. He was sure that Rudy clapped Shazandan. Danon tells him not to worry about it, they will defeat him this time. Right then, they see a spirit drake transporting Ares with the imposter Danon, who is actually Shazandan. Ares and Shazandan pass them by and head to the mountains where Rudy went. When Gideon and Danon realize this, they decide to follow them as best as they can. Rit is with Tiss heading to the mountains as well. They meet Gideon, who has run faster than Danon. He tells them that Danon is behind him and explains that they met at the port. Rit confesses to having met Danon before and apologizes for not telling him earlier. Gideon asks her if the Danon she met had anything different about him. She says no, and he tells her that the Danon he met doesn't have the right arm. The girls are shocked to learn this. Gideon tells them what Danon told him about Shizandin. Rit doesn't understand because she was there when Shizandin was clapped. They all were. Gideon is sure that Danon is telling the truth because he doesn't often forget enemies he has fought. Rit starts to feel guilty for not saying anything earlier. If she had said something, Gideon would have known it wasn't Danon who she met, and she would have gone after the imposter. Despite her vow to never touch her swords again, she wants to fight Shizandin. Gideon agrees that Shizandin is a huge threat and must be stopped. They will fight together so that they don't regret it later. Gideon heads out first as Rit and Tis follow him behind. After some time, he comes to the ruins, a building in the roots of a tree. The place is dark and hard to navigate without a light. Gideon uses a light stick to find his way and sees that one of the doors has been broken through, making him comment that Rudy is sloppy sometimes. When he comes to the opening of the broken entrance, he finds that there is no floor, just a pit. He climbs all the way down, reaches the floor below, and heads southwest from there. At another entrance, he finds a wood elf script carved on the wall. It reads, Hero Administration Bureau, but he doesn't understand why it's at an ancient elven ruin. He ignores it for the time being and continues to walk. He finally finds another door and opens it, thinking Rudy is inside. Something jumps out as soon as he opens the door, startling him. Because of this, he draws his sword, ready to attack. Luckily, it's just Godwyn who is surprised by his sudden appearance. Gideon asks him where Rudy is, but Godwyn doesn't know. Gideon asks him to call out to her, but he refuses, saying that she scares him. Gideon decides to squeeze Godwyn's arm so tightly that he screams in pain, alerting Rudy, who immediately appears. She gets there with her sword, ready to defend Godwyn, only to find that it's her brother attacking him. Rudy and Gideon go to another room to talk. Gideon starts by apologizing for not being able to help her in her time of need. He tells her that he, too, has been trying to find ways to cure her blessing. He shows her a bottle of a concoction that he's been working on that is supposed to lessen blessing urges, but since it's a poison, it wouldn't work on her. Rudy doesn't understand because she thought Gideon had always wanted to save the world. That's why he trained so hard to become a strong knight, and unlike her, he chose to become a hero. Gideon confesses that despite this being the truth, he did it all to protect her. It's because she's precious to him. This makes Rudy flustered, seemingly able to express some emotion as her blessing is slowly weakening. Gideon is glad that she's quitting her duty. However, she feels bad because she abandoned her comrades, broke out a prisoner, and is now trying to get rid of her blessing. She's worried that she might be making a mistake since the whole world expects her to be the hero. She wonders if it's okay for her to be just a regular person. Is she even allowed to do that? Gideon assures her that she is allowed, just as he is too. Rudy is happy to hear this from her brother. She lays her head on his chest and says that she is selfish and doesn't deserve to be the hero. But she's happy that Gideon has accepted her like that and tells him that she loves him. Ares and Shizandin arrive at the mountain and look for her. Shizandin tells Ares about an ancient elven ruin there, and Ares demands to be taken there. Shizandin enjoys messing with him, only telling him now that the ruins are very deep underground and watching him get angry. Danon is still making his way to the mountain when Theodora and Albert fly over him on a dragon. They stop to give him a lift. Rit and Tis arrive at the ruins and meet with Gideon and Rudy. Rudy looks more lively now, her eyes sparkle, and she has a slight smile when she speaks. She thanks Tis for bringing Gideon and Rit to her. Gideon suggests that they speak to Godwyn quickly so he can explain his plans. To create a devil's blessing, Godwyn needs demon hearts. They want to know how he's going to go about that. Rudy comments that the contract demon also told her the same thing, but he also said that the demon hearts are a curse, and because of that, the devil's blessing isn't manifesting in her. Gideon asks how she's managing to weaken her hero blessing at the moment. She answers that there's an unknown blessing that has emerged in her, but the blessing is just there with no impulses or urges. The group hurries to tell Godwyn so he can explain what it could be. However, Godwyn hasn't heard of such a thing before. Gideon asks him if Rudy will get any urges to clap, and Godwyn explains that she won't because the devil's blessing didn't manifest. And if the new blessing doesn't have any urges either, then there's nothing to worry about. Tis is relieved to hear this, but becomes worried when she senses that something is coming. When they check to see, they find that it's a horde of big eyeballs called Plague Eyes. They're approaching them at a speed. Rudy comes forth and uses her lighting magic on them, electrocuting them to oblivion. She also charges forward in the direction that the eyes came from. Gideon runs after her, leaving Rit worried. He instructs her to protect Godwyn, and she accepts. Gideon catches up to Rudy, she senses where the spell came from, and they both sprint there. They meet Ares, who managed to find the place. He's glad to see Rudy and asks her to come with him to fight the Demon Lord. He's confident that the two of them can do it, they don't need anyone else because anyone else is a worthless piece of trash. He walks up to her and puts out his hand so that Rudy can take it and go with him. Unfortunately, Rudy is done adventuring. She wants to live as Rudy now, not the hero. Ares understands that Rudy can't bring herself to abandon her burden of a brother, so she chose to settle. She's far too kind. Gideon tries to correct him, but Ares will not hear it from the mouth of the burden. He gets angry. He quickly shuts Gideon up with a magic pulse that sends him flying and hitting a wall behind. Now that Gideon is quiet, he again asks Rudy to come with him. Rudy just pulls out her sword immediately and plunges it into his gut. She tells him that he knows nothing about her, he didn't even try to learn. She tells him that his vitals are still intact, he can just heal himself. He's lucky though, if he had hurt Gideon, she would have clapped him right then. Shazandan is waiting around the corner, listening in on the conversation, and he quickly transforms back into Bui. Rudy runs to check on Gideon and heals him. She turns to Ares to tell him that she's no longer the hero and will never come to his help ever again. She and Gideon leave him wondering why a hero wouldn't want to live as a hero and why he's the one suffering for it. As he's furiously questioning life, Shazandan as Bui appears behind him, introduces himself, and offers him a healing potion. Ares quickly heals himself without Shazandan's help, surprising him. Amazingly, Ares quickly recognizes that Bui is an Asura demon who doesn't have a blessing. Shazandan is impressed and offers Ares a deal to work together. Ares thinks it's a crazy idea, but when Shazandan tells him about a relic there that can make Rudy come back to him, he agrees. As they're walking, Ares recalls the first time he met Rudy. He was smitten by her. She shined above everything else in the world that seemed to fade in her presence. He had the utmost respect for her and felt he found purpose in his life, to fight alongside her and right what is wrong. He still wants to fulfill his purpose, so he must find that relic and make Rudy his again. Rudy and Gideon tell the others about Ares and what he intends to do. Tis thinks that Ares has stooped too low with what he's done, especially since he's working with someone else. Gideon becomes alert when he hears this since he hasn't seen Shazandan. Tis can sense Shazandan, but just faintly, and when she mentions that he's pretending to be someone else, they realize that it's him. They wonder what Shazandan is trying to do with Ares, and although they aren't sure, Gideon thinks it's best that they ask Ares before he gets deceived. They decide to leave and find Ares again, taking Godwyn with them. Danon, Theodora, and Albert arrive at the ruins as well. They agree that they will do things as they see fit since Rudy isn't there to command them. Ares and Shazandan arrive at a different part of the ruins, but before they can do anything, Danon arrives and interrupts them. He takes a sword from a skeletal remains and throws it at Shazandan, who manages to block it in time. Shazandan quickly reads the situation. He thinks he can face off well with Danon since Danon doesn't have his right arm. He quickly charges toward him, but to his surprise, Danon knocks him with his left hand. When he's down, Danon tells him that he wants to clap him right there. But he also thanks him for biting off his right arm because it made him train his left arm more. Now he's stronger than he ever was. He immediately approaches Shazandan and attacks him mercilessly with his fist and feet, using his full power and leaving no opening for Shazandan to take a break. Shazandan cries for Ares to help him out, but Ares doesn't know what to do. He's not going to attack a beast like Danon when he's just a sage who doesn't do close combat. But still, he tries to think of ways to help. He uses his magic to conjure a javelin charged with electricity. He throws it at Danon, who dodges it, but doesn't dodge the current around it, causing him to get electrocuted. This gives Shazandan the chance to fight back. He pierces Danon with his sword and uses a blasting magic spell to make him explode from the inside. However, Danon is still standing and ready to continue the fight. When Shazandan sees this, he realizes that Danon is not an average martial artist, making him go all out. He changes back to his original form and uses his 4 swords to attack Danon. Danon blocks every one of the attacks with his single arm and breaks all the 4 swords. Unfortunately, Shazandan uses one of his feet to impale Danon on the chest with a broken blade. Shazandan confesses to being a martial artist as well, and Danon admits the loss as he falls to the ground. Ares is still watching. He's more surprised by how calm he feels after seeing one of his comrades get injured. But he knows that he's betrayed Gideon first. This feels natural now. He knew that Gideon was nothing like what he said when he banished him from the party. That's why he had to get rid of him. He was in his way, so it's all justified. Shizanden thanks Ares for the help in the fight, and they decide to head forward with their search. He seems to be more genuine with Ares as a comrade than Ares ever was with Danon or Gideon. He uses some form of a crystal that disables the encryption on the entrance of another room, impressing Ares since the technology is very ancient. They open all the entrances leading to a room that has a giant tube filled with green liquid and a root-like thing inside it. At the bottom of the tube, there is a large gold container that Shizanden unlocks to reveal an array of 5 holy swords with the 6th one missing from its slot. Shizanden explains to Ares, who's confused by the swords which look like the Holy Demon Slayer. The Holy Demon Slayer is the one which the first hero had, and the other ones are just replicas. The ones on display were bestowed by the Almighty himself, and they are not Demon Slayers, they are instead called the Sacred Avengers, which are different originals. Shizanden further explains that just like the replicas of the first hero's sword, the current hero is just a replica of the first hero's soul. He tells Ares that to get Rudy back, he must do 2 things. First, he must give Rudy one of the Sacred Avengers, as it has the power to strengthen her blessing. And second, he must get rid of what's making her have a desire to live a normal life, her brother. Shizanden gives Ares one of the swords, and Ares can already see his plan coming together. Rudy and her party head in the direction of Shizanden and Ares. Before they enter through one of the entrances, Rudy gives Gideon Thunderwaker since it was always his. As soon as they go through one of the entrances, they see Shizanden, who is impersonating Rit's master again. Rit immediately goes to fight him, causing him to go back to his form. Gideon joins the fight, and the two gang up on Shizanden. Ares decides to help him out though. He uses a fire magic to burn Gideon and Rit, chanting that Gideon must just perish right there. Rudy uses her own magic to shield them. She asks Ares to surrender if he wants to be forgiven, but he won't do that. If he has to force her to adventure with him again, he will do it. The two face off using their magic skills, which are on par with each other, terrifying Godwin. He tries to run away, but gets intercepted by Ares' spirit drake, terrifying him even more that he falls to the ground. Tis comes to his rescue and tells him to stay close to them, and he agrees. Theodora and Albert find Danon wounded. He's still alive, and Albert is impressed that he was able to hold on for that long. They give him a healing potion. Rudy continues to face off with Ares, who is planning to have her touch the holy sword. Rudy uses her own sword and magic to hit Ares with a whirlwind spell that overwhelms all of them in the room. They all try not to go get swept by the current, and Ares' drake disappears after getting hit by the magic. When this subsides, Shizanden and Ares find that their swords have been broken. Shizanden realizes that Rudy is far more powerful than the first hero. Suddenly, Tis feels something coming from below, and they warn Rit to get out of the way. When the floor breaks, Theodora on her dragon appears and uses holy chains on Rit to bind her. She immediately goes for Rudy and tries to fight her. Rudy asks her why, and Theodora explains that it's because she must be sacrificed for the world to prosper. As the hero, she must fulfill her duty or die to save the world. Rudy doesn't understand. She wants to live a normal life, but Theodora insists that she sacrifice herself. Rudy doesn't want to sacrifice herself for people she doesn't even know, but as Theodora says, it's the Almighty's will. Rit tries to move and free herself, but gets stopped by Theodora's dragon. Shizanden takes pleasure in seeing Gideon torn between helping Rit or Rudy. Theodora tries to convince Rudy that even if Gideon tried to save anyone, he's not the hero, so he won't be able to. The only one who can is her. Rit wiggles her way out of under the foot of the dragon and objects to what is being said. How dare Theodora suggest that she needs help from the hero? Theodora asks her if she's forgetting what happened in Logravia. It was the hero who saved them. Rit denies this. It wasn't the hero, the guide, or the crusader. It was the people, Rudy, Gideon, and Theodora, who helped her. People are more than their blessings. They are still people which the blessings become a part of. Theodora doesn't care. She will only listen to what the Almighty says. Rit vows that if the will of the Almighty is to burden people with the fate of the world, then she will prove him wrong. Surprisingly, Shizanden agrees with this. He also thinks that the Almighty is foolish for just picking a random and giving them the hero blessing. As the dragon begins to move again, Gideon quickly runs to save Rit. He cuts the dragon's head and saves Rit, but Ares uses his magic to conjure an iron wall that separates them from the rest. He uses a giant cube to send them to the bottom floor by dropping them in the pit. Rudy becomes enraged and tries to go after her brother, getting Theodora out of her way. However, Shizanden blocks her and strikes her with his sword. She blocks the attack, but the pressure is too much that her sword breaks. Shinsandan takes a hold of her and drops to a lower floor. Ares is happy to see the outcome of the battle. It makes him feel powerful. He won against Gideon, that means he's better than Gideon. He turns around and sees Tis and Godwyn still in shock. He uses a tornado magic to take Tis down. Tis doesn't understand why Ares is doing any of this, so he explains. Rudy is a hero and must be a hero. That's what's best for her. What will bring her joy is being at her strongest. That's how it's supposed to be. Tis doesn't care for this. She wants Rudy to live her life as she sees fit. Rudy is just a girl who wants to experience life. She gets up, motivated to not let anyone take away Rudy's will from her, but she soon collapses on the floor due to her injuries. Mr. Jumpajitters shields her, and Godwyn tries to do something too since he hates villains who don't know that they are villains. Ares isn't interested in what Godwyn has to say. He takes him down too and steps on Mr. Jumpajitters. Gideon and Rit are still falling through the pit when Danon appears on the last floor and promises to save them. He uses his dragon fist to send them back to where they came from. This infuriates Ares, who's trying to just clap Gideon, who just won't die. Gideon charges at Ares, who throws the magic charged javelin at him. Gideon manages to dodge the javelin, which makes its way to Rit, who's using a spell on him to block the attack. However, she gets hit by it, leaving her screaming in agony. Ares, seeing Gideon coming at him, tries to charge at him as well, but his hand gets caught in some strings from Mr. Jumpajitters. While he still fusses over this, Gideon gets to him, cuts off his hands and slashes at him, finally bringing him down. Ares tries to cry for Shinsandan to help him, but Shinsandan is not there. Before Ares passes, he asks why it's always Gideon who wins when he's more powerful than him. He was born to serve the hero, but gets to die like this. Alas, he takes his last breath. In the underneath floor, Rudy is lying on the ground. She asks why this is happening when all she wants is to live a peaceful life with her brother. Shinsandan tells her that she's a threat and must be dealt with. He prepares to strike her, but she puts up a fight. She defends herself with her broken sword even when Shinsandan has the upper hand. She doesn't understand why it's such a bad thing to want to be just a girl. Shinsandan repeats what's already been said, a hero must be a hero. Rudy is sick of this already. It angers her so much she demands Gideon back. Shinsandan sees the anger in her eyes and braces himself. Rudy strikes him with her fists so powerful that he's sent flying. He quickly gets up, and she's forced to get a weapon. She takes one of the sacred Avengers which had fallen from Shinsandan's hands, making him happy. They exchange fierce blows and Shinsandan knows that the goal is close. Unfortunately, Rudy cuts his head off, instantly clapping him. After, she stands with the sword in hand with rage still etched on her face, seemingly having consumed her. On the floor above, Gideon administers a healing potion to Theodora and Godwyn doesn't understand why. Gideon explains that she's a friend even though she did become their enemy at the last minute. He doesn't want Rudy to feel bad for slaying one of her comrades. Rudy comes up from below with the Sacred Avenger still in hand. She looks as expressionless as she did before. Gideon is happy to see her, but he notices her change in demeanor and becomes worried. Rudy looks at him for a second before trying to cut him down. Tis intercepts the strike, saving Gideon's life. She asks Rudy not to do harm to Gideon since he's very dear to her and falls unconscious. Godwyn panics when he realizes that Rudy has the urge to clap, which he thought wouldn't happen. Gideon gets up and asks Rit and Godwyn to help Tis. He moves away from them to lead Rudy in a different direction. Rudy follows him with the intent to clap him. When they exchange swings, Gideon's sword, Thunderwaker, gets chipped so much that it almost breaks. He puts it down and tries to use the bronze sword. Godwyn worries that the weapon is too shoddy, but Gideon doesn't listen. He proceeds with it, and when Rudy comes at him, he uses it in such a way that Rudy's sword slices it vertically from the handle. He grabs Rudy's sword with the two blades and makes her loses her grip on it, causing her to let go. After letting go of the sword, Rudy seems to come back to her senses. She becomes overwhelmed by her loss of control over her senses a second ago. When Gideon comes to her, she immediately runs to him and cries, feeling guilty for what she's done. Albert and Danon arrive and see the state of Theodora, who's on the floor but still alive. Rit tells Gideon that she's at her limit with Tiss's wound and can't do much anymore. Rudy takes it upon herself, but when she gets there, she can't channel her healing power. She doesn't understand that the blessing made her fight battles, but it won't work when she needs to heal her friend. She becomes upset all over again since she and Tiss had become very close and became true friends. She feels guilty and cries. Theodora offers to help and successfully heals all of Tiss's wounds. She tells Rudy that she won't ask for forgiveness because she believes she wasn't wrong. She knew that Rudy could be a hero on her own without anyone's help, and when Gideon left, she proved it. Albeit the knowledge she had about the hero and how lonely she was, she wanted her to fulfill her duty no matter what. Rudy never asked to be the hero, but Theodora will only let the Almighty judge her for not caring. However, since she did betray them, she asks that they clap her. Before anyone can say anything, Albert quickly intervenes and asks them to reconsider. Just like him, Theodora was only acting with the intention of saving the world. She's a hero for doing her job. He asks them to spare her life. This touches all of them. Tiss wakes up and expresses joy seeing that Rudy is fine. Rudy is also happy to see her friend wake up. She tells Theodora that since she did save Tiss's life, she will spare her but will not adventure with her. She has never thought of herself as the hero anyways. If anyone is a hero, it's Theodora herself. Gideon chimes in, saying that a hero will never feel lonely, and that a true hero is the one who does good out if their own will, inspiring others to join in on the fight as well. Theodora asks him if she can become a guide like him, and he says she can. She agrees that becoming a guide does sound far more enjoyable than clapping your own comrades for the sake of the Almighty. After some time, Rudy, Gideon, Danon, and Tiss go to the church to say their final goodbyes to Ares before he rests in peace. After the service, Rudy apologizes to Gideon for all that's happened, and Gideon consoles her. Danon tells them that he'll stay for 3 days in Zoltan and be on his way to continue adventuring. They say their farewell, and another day comes. Gideon, Rit, Rudy, and Tiss are back at the shop and life is moving forward very nicely. Rudy just wants to be close to her brother, but Rit doesn't want her to be too close, and it shows. The only one who doesn't go crazy over Gideon is Tiss, who has Mr. Jumpajitters. Suddenly, a woman bursts into the shop, asking Rudy for help. There are a bunch of ogres who took over a village and have taken a hold of the adventurers sent there to deal with them. Rudy looks at Gideon for approval, and Gideon tells her that she can do whatever she wants. She grabs her sword, saying that this is what she wants, to help out sometimes. She leaves the shop with the woman. Tiss comments that Rudy is a hero. She's just a hero who wants to help on her own will. Tiss also goes outside to follow her friend to this adventure. As they walk away, Gideon and Rit come out of the shop. Gideon tells Rudy that he will make whatever she wants when she comes back. Rudy requests warm milk with honey, indicating that she's still the same little girl she was at 5 years old. Watch this next video. See you on the next one.